Welcome, everybody. I believe oh, good, we're recording. Hi, everybody, and welcome to 30 Minutes of Wisdom. We get together every second and fourth Friday to share amazing thought leaders with each one of you to support you in your personal and professional development. And I am your host, Robin Blanc Mascari. It is my joy and passion, truly, to share these wonderful, gifted thought leaders to support you and all of us. And our guest today is a personal favorite, and because he so embodies what this is about. He used his own challenges to overcome and share his wisdom. He's a consummate student. He's a best-selling author, a world-class speaker. He's got amazing programs, and I'm going to read some of them. He actually used his own challenge of crippling anxiety and low self-esteem to transform himself and help people understand how happiness and success are connected. And it is, I have a vivid memory of when we met. You know, he's very accomplished as a physician, as a mindfulness coach, as a world-class speaker, as a best-selling author. But when I met him as a magician. and we instantly bonded many years ago, and I've just witnessed his career blossom and blossom and blossom because he keeps working on himself. Some of the programs he has, his best-selling book, Unhypnosis, he has a sales mastery program, a program on the magic of inner selling. He has online productivity masterpiece program. I love this one, Procrastination Annihilation. I know how that was a really popular one. And his latest book on thriving through stress on life's battlefields, Buddha in the Trenches, which is really very timely right now because of what we're dealing with. And that's why we chose the topic today, how to quickly dissolve negativity and create mental toughness. It is my pleasure to bring on Dr. Steve Taubman. Dr. Steve, come show up. So there he is. Hi.
Wow, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Robin. I'm always honored to be with you. And you know what my favorite part of the introduction was? When you said a consummate student. I was like, yeah, that's something I don't think about much, but I think that's what makes what helps us to become who we want to be, is to just stay in the not knowing.
You know, and I've watched you over all these years, and that's what interests me when I see people. It's like they might have a great program, they might have written a great book, but are they continuing to grow? And you just continue to blossom in front of me. And I love sharing you with our audience. And, you know, as we know in our business, as I like to quote Jim Rohn all the time, he's the business philosopher for network marketing. And he says, you know, work twice as hard on yourself as you do on your business,
Right.
because you are your business. So I just love having you, and you know, we could do. It's always interesting because Dr. Steve has this depth and breadth of resources, information, value. So we had to pick something, and so we decided to pick dissolving negativity and creating mental toughness because of the times we're in right now. And I think this could be really valuable for all of us. So should we jump in?
Let's do it. I'm so excited about this topic, and I'm going to call the part of the title that says mental toughness. I'm going to call this an ethical bait and switch.
I love it.
So, you know, a bait and switch is usually, hey, come on in here and get this wonderful, amazing thing, and then they give you dreck, you know, crap. But an ethical bait and switch is the opposite, which is, you know, come on in for one thing. We're going to sneak in something infinitely more valuable. And
Ooh,
so
that's who you are, is
thanks.
infinitely more valuable. I love it, because you go in for one thing and you get so much more. So I guess we should start out with a little definition here, and like,
Yeah.
what does mental resilience really mean?
Well, I'm going to distinguish, because we're going to focus really on the resilience piece,
Okay,
and we're
great.
going to call toughness a small piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Okay, great.
Resilience is our ability to maintain our greatest selves, to be the best you can be, to have the best access to the resources available to you, regardless of what's happening externally, and to be able to do so over time, regardless of the ongoing onslaught of whatever happens to be coming your way. And so over the last several years, this idea of mental toughness has risen to the forefront. And I think what happens is is people start equating this idea of toughness with the capacity to be resilient, to be able to maintain over the long haul. And you know what the reality is, Robin, is that toughness is one of the tools that sometimes works and often doesn't. And the problem is almost anybody watching this right now knows there have been times in your life where something was going wrong and there was a voice in your head saying, just toughen up, you can do it. And this notion that somehow you're going to use sheer grit to overcome this situation. And in my experience, there are those times when sheer grit does the job, but more often than not, the thing that does the heavy lifting is not toughness, but it's flexibility. Do I have mental flexibility? Can I reframe or retool the way I'm envisioning the situation I'm in? And how many situations are there really that are truly, a dead end? It's intractable. It really is the worst possible case scenario. It seldom is that. But the reason we have to apply toughness is because we often think that it is that. Wasn't it Mark Twain who said, I've lived through many tragedies, some of which actually happened?
Our speaker last time in 30 Minutes of Wisdom talked about this very thing, and that distinction is
Yeah.
so valuable. I mean, we were traveling yesterday, and I watched myself get into interesting mental conversations about the situation we're in right now, and I had to really work with myself, and the flexibility and the resilience in moving with it was really, really valuable for me. So talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about what does resilience really mean?
So to me, resilience is the outcome of putting our circumstance face to face with our capacity and coming out on top.
I love it.
So if our capacity is overwhelmed by our circumstances, then we are no longer in a state of resilience. But when we start learning more and more of the tools, and that's what Buddha in the Trenches and more recently Bulletproof are all about, what happens is we start to understand that that it's more state dependent. When I say state, I mean mood or energy, thought dependent than circumstantial. And we know that somewhat because there are times when things look really bleak and really bad, and somehow we have a shift of mood. Maybe something funny happens or somebody says something funny. And all of a sudden we're in a brand new state, a brand new mood, a brand new set of thoughts. The situation, the circumstance hasn't changed at all, but somehow we're still, somehow we're above it now. And by being above it, we can do whatever needs to be done or let it go if it doesn't have anything that needs to be done.
Did you know ahead of time what we were going to go through by creating Buddha in the Trenches and Bulletproof? You must have
No, isn't that weird?
premonition.
It was almost when for Buddha in the Trenches, which probably in my mind is the best name for any book. It wasn't as embraced by the corporate audience because it has that kind of religious overtone, and some people, even though it doesn't, but it sounds like it might. So it cut out a certain segment of the population. So I ended up recreating it under the title Bulletproof without any of the the callbacks to any religion or whatnot. But the principles are the same. These are universal principles. And so the book is filled with tools and techniques and strategies for what happens when you're up against something that seems overwhelming, and how do you not only survive it, but how do you thrive? And then a month later, came COVID.
So you had a premonition and you created
Yeah.
an amazing resource. And I hope everyone does hear that, because this is what we need to be in times like this, is bulletproof. No matter, I tell people, when they're dealing with, people that are negative or a certain situation, I said, put a frame of Teflon over you.
Yeah, that's right.
So it doesn't get in,
It does, and it's a semi-permeable membrane, which means that the negative doesn't get in, but the love gets in, the joy gets in, the appreciation and the gratitude get in. And in fact, the more we cultivate those qualities, the more bulletproof we become, because the things that are temporarily damaging or painful to us, it's only temporary because those other things overshadow it.
That's beautiful. So how about some details about what's inside a Bulletproof? Give
So
people faith.
Bulletproof is based on a five-step model.
Mhm.
And the first step has to do with the initial frame around everything in your life being, I'm here, and Dalai Lama says this, the purpose of life is to be happy, right? So if I'm not happy, I'm not living my purpose.
Mm.
And so there are people who are out there thinking that their purpose is to make $1 million or to, to crush it in a particular business. And when they're not getting the results they want and they turn unhappy, they don't realize that they're off purpose because they figure they're still driving toward whatever it is they think their purpose is. But we always have a higher order of purpose. And if whatever you're doing is incapable of providing you with the experience of happiness, despite your best mental efforts, and you might be needing to try something else, or you might need to go inside and start thinking about what this really means. Why am I taking it in this way?
Was it Sean Aker who wrote the book on happiness and did all that research?
Yeah, he wrote The Happiness Advantage. I
Yeah.
spoke at a conference with Sean down in Mexico a couple of years back, and it was great. I was talking a lot about mindfulness as one of the tools of happiness, and of course, he was talking about a lot of his stuff is reframing. It's just looking at
Well,
different.
it's what you just said that's so simple and so profound that success doesn't come, you don't get success and then get happiness, which is what a lot of our culture believes. It's
Right.
the opposite. It's the
Absolutely.
opposite. And I'm living proof. I've never had, a greater time in business, and I've never been as successful.
And when
And
you're not happy and you're trying so hard and not getting results, and now you're deteriorating to a lower level of happiness, it's more frustration. We've got to pause. We've got to be able to push the pause button and take the time to look inside and just evaluate from a very mindful perspective. What am I saying to myself? Where is my energy? What am I allowing in? And how can I dismantle that? And that's where the dissolving negativity comes in. And that's why I think this is such an important topic today.
yes,
Because the problem for a lot of people, even if they understand this theoretically, they understand, that, yeah, it's important to be happy. Yeah, I should be happy, or I shouldn't let this get to me. But how often do you hear somebody say exactly that? I shouldn't let this get to me, but it's still getting to them.
right.
So there's a methodology. We're going to talk about this in a moment. There's a methodology that allows us to literally dissolve the experience of negativity so that we're no longer in that state.
Wow. Well, your
Yeah.
work in mindfulness has been such a gift to everyone. And we have to start with that place of awareness. And we can't change until we have the awareness that something's not working or we want it to be different. So take it the next step.
Well, once we've decided that that's a life purpose worth pursuing, and then that becomes the yardstick upon which we measure everything. Am I or am I not in a positive state? If I'm not in a positive state, that's my first goal, not to get the results that I think are going to put me in a positive state. Right. So that's step one. Step two is I call it live by a code or clean up your act. Right. And what I'm saying is there are a lot of people who are cutting corners, particularly when they're under stress. They may be not out and out lying, but they're not acting at the highest level of integrity. They may be cheating this way or that way. And there are things that people do when they're feeling stressed and they're not getting the results they want. They figure if I cut a few corners, then I'll take the quick road to getting the results I want. And of course, the quick way is the slow way, and the slow way is the quick way. So if you do it the quick way, which is cheating, you may make a quick movement in the direction you want, and then spend the rest of your life there because you haven't built the foundation of integrity. And so cleaning up your act and living by a code means waking up every morning with as much not only integrity, but responsibility,
Mm.
rituals, things that you do every day in a certain way that you could count on yourself. Like you're going to brush your teeth whether you feel like it or not. You're going to make your bed whether you feel like it or not. There are things that highly successful people do. And there's so much research on this remarkable power, the power of ritual, the power of discipline, that even though we rebelled against discipline as children, discipline is freedom, right? Once we've disciplined ourselves, once we understand that we operate at a higher level of integrity and greater effectiveness if we operate consistently. If I'm happy and I'm kind to everyone, even if that anyone is kind of a jerk, right? We're tested all the time, but the question is, do you pass or fail that test?
I have to admit that I'm very distracted. When you started sharing about that, I was on a plane yesterday and I was watching the movie Wonder Woman. And that's the very beginning of the movie, that as a young person, she cut corners. And her teacher, her mentor said, it's not going to work. It's not truth. You
That's right.
can't cut corners. You've got to do the work. And
Yeah, and you know, I did too. When I was younger, I was exactly that way. And my results spoke for that. You know,
they
so
do, don't they?
I was 13 years old. I decided to learn to play the guitar, but I never really practiced. So I got okay. I never got really good at it. And then I was 33 years old when I decided to learn magic. And at the age of 33, I was ready to discipline myself, to do things consistently, to practice, to be okay with the idea that I'm not going to get the results I want right away, but I've got to still stay with it. So that persistence and that commitment served me well. So now I think I'm a pretty good magician.
You're a really good magician from what I remember, like really good, but it
Yeah.
takes a lot of discipline to get really good.
It does, and that's true in network marketing as well, right? There's going to be a period, there's going to be a lag between the effort you put in and the results you get, and you need to be willing to stay with the discipline and have the faith. It's not hope, it's faith, right? Hope is, gee, I hope this will happen. That's a victim mentality. But faith, I know that if I keep doing this, that the fruits will begin to grow on that tree. But first, I've got to plant the tree.
You know, we use a quote on a regular basis. Success is not magical, it's mathematical.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
And so it's true in life, you know. It is, you keep doing it and you keep living how you can be better and better and better, and you just keep tweaking and tweaking. So let's continue on the model here.
So now we've decided, yes, I want to put happiness first. And yes, I'm willing to live with integrity so I don't create a lot of negative karma and bad stuff all around me as I move in that direction. And then the third one, and I think the one that most of us have not learned and speaks to this dissolving negativity, which ended up being the fourth one. But the third one is sharpen your focus. Okay. Most of us have never really practiced the art of focus. Right? So what is practicing the art of focus? Meditating. There are other things, I often teach people, if you've never meditated, if you've never done anything that involved selecting your focus and keeping it regardless, then the next time you wash your dishes, wash each dish as if it were a cherished child. Don't do anything else while you're washing your dishes. One dish at a time, full focus, full attention, full reverence. And so the things that we do that require us to bring our attention to a selected point, and then to realize in advance that it's going to want to wander away, right? We are all 90-pound weaklings when it comes to focus. We haven't exercised our focus muscles. So when we strengthen our focus muscles, we develop a superpower that allows us to distinguish between all the stuff that's distracting us and pulling us off course and discouraging us, and commitment, right? This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. This may be what it feels like right now, and I may not love it, but I'm bringing my attention back to my breath or to the feeling of my butt in the chair or whatever it is. I'm just coming back. And as you just did, I'm the calm in the eye of the storm. And when we practice that, when we strengthen our focus muscles, and of course, that's part of what we teach in the book, is how do you do that? Because a lot of people are lost when it comes to that. They just never learned it. And it's not highly prized in our culture.
It's so, it's one of those things that's right in front of us. It's so simple and so powerful, but we don't see it.
Yeah.
And I want to give you another quote. I think you'll like this one. It's from Buddha. And he said, enlightenment is, because we're always, going on and off track, but he said, enlightenment is catching ourselves off track quicker than the time before. So
that's fantastic. That's perfect. Exactly.
Isn't that beautiful? And that changed my life, that quote, because I'm going, we all get off track. And we all get off focus, but it's the awareness that we're off focus to get us back and doing it, instead of like this, doing it, quicker and quicker.
Well, Robin,
Yeah.
you know that I'm a pilot, and I used to have a plane for a long time. For like 25 years, I flew my own plane. And the reality is, let's say I'm flying from here to visit you in Montana.
I want you to do
And
that.
we really want to do that. I know. So if I'm flying from Burlington, Vermont to Bozeman, my plane is almost never on course.
Right.
It's constantly going off and correcting and going off and correcting. But as you said, it's how quickly do I make that correction? And how do I know unless I'm attentive, unless I'm aware? And all that awareness comes from that ability to focus. I'm watching my instruments. And in the same way, I'm watching myself. What does it feel like? I said, my purpose is happiness. I've cleared the way to remove the kinds of distractions that come from living a messy life. And now I'm trying to get, move in that direction toward happiness. And if I'm really sensitive and aware because of my ability to practice focus, then I notice when I'm starting to go off and veer off and get, kind of intensely focused on something that doesn't matter anymore, getting really obsessive about something. There are people that you and I both know who are still mad at somebody they had a fight with 30 years ago. It's like, come on already. I mean, it's time to move on. Just let it go, bring yourself back into the moment and be really, really present. And that's where and so that's the third and perhaps the most important kind of cornerstone is we all need to become masters of our own awareness, our own focus. But
Wow.
you see how each one builds on the next, right? You won't do the integrity stuff if you haven't first made happiness a priority, and you won't do the focus stuff if you haven't first made discipline a priority.
Love
And that
it.
brings us to the fourth one. And the fourth one I call lean in.
Mm.
And this is dissolve negativity. So this is my favorite. This is perhaps the thing that I tend to be, if I'm out speaking somewhere, it's the thing that distinguishes my rap from everybody else's rap, because I feel that there are people now who are talking about mindfulness. Thank God. Thank God people are starting to say yes.
You were an early adopter.
What's that?
You were an early adopter.
Very early adopter. I know there's something that's very frustrating in life when you're the early adopter and nobody's listening, and then all of a sudden everybody's doing it, but they're not giving you the credit because
I understand. I understand. Yes. Yes.
we just have to let that go.
Yeah.
Another good example of, the discipline, okay, I want to be happy, so I'm not going to ruminate about something that makes me unhappy. It's just foolish waste of time. So, and I'm practicing and I'm focusing and I'm doing it with as much consistency as possible. And in fact, in 4 days, I'm heading to Shelburne, Massachusetts to go sit in a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Beautiful.
And because that's boot camp, right? That's how we learn, and how we not just learn it in our heads, but how our bodies embody the experience of being focused when there's nothing else to focus on but you. At first it's tough, right? But at first everything's tough. At first, the first 3 days of vacation are tough. Right? It's like it's adapting. So the fourth part is leaning in. And what that means is that as a result of our incorrect upbringing and training, we have come to believe that things that feel good are good and things that feel bad are bad. And we should avoid the things that feel bad at all costs, even if the way we're going to avoid the things that feel bad bring us to things that are even worse. So like I'm depressed, so I think I'll, shoot up some heroin. It's a bad solution to a problem that's a lot easier to solve. Mm. So the solution to emotional angst, anxiety, suffering, pain, disappointment, the solution to those is not to try to bring something in from the outside to make it go away, because you can never do it. You can never be on top of it. But what you can do is you can learn how to be completely present to the experience. And in being completely present to the experience, to discover to your remarkable delight that the experience is not permanent and it is not deadly. This is something we never let ourselves do, because as soon as I have pain, I'm looking around thinking about what am I going to do to make it go away. As soon as I'm depressed, as soon as I'm anxious, as soon as my relationship is not great, I'm looking for an out. And
Mm.
all of this looking for an out that we've been trained to do has robbed us of such a profound, life-changing experience. And that life-changing experience comes the moment you say, I'm going to lean in. So
Mm.
I'll give you examples because I know this is a little bit esoteric or a little bit vague I'll give you some examples. All right. Example number one comes from the first time I did a meditation retreat. And I was sitting in the meditation hall and I got a cramp in my foot. Everybody knows that a cramp in the foot is very painful. And most of us, when we get a cramp in our foot, start getting panicky. We feel our heart racing, and then we start trying to move around and make it go away, or we try to stretch it out, or just jump up and start screaming. None of those options were available sitting in a silent meditation retreat. I was sitting among about 50 other people in absolute silence, and any kind of commotion would have been frowned upon. And so here I am sitting with this cramp in my foot. And if you're really honest with yourself, you also realize that almost nothing you do helps anyway. Like you try to stretch it out and it comes back, right? It's almost always a losing cause, but we somehow try everything we can and then hope for the best. Well, one of the lessons of all of this is that nothing is permanent. Everything runs its course. And that the most effective relationship you can have with any experience, regardless of how painful that experience is the relationship of curiosity.
Beautiful.
So I'm feeling this pain, which I would usually run from or try to change or fix, but I adopt the attitude of curiosity because it's appropriate to where I am. And I wonder how much pain this is going to be. And I wonder how long it's going to last. And I wonder what would happen if I did nothing with a cramp. Even though I know that every fiber of my being wants me to do something with it, I wonder what would happen if I did nothing with it. And I wonder if there's more than one thing going on right now, because not only am I feeling the pain of the cramp, but I'm also feeling anxiety of, oh my God, what if this cramp gets worse? Well, and that, oh my God, anxiety feeling is also a feeling, and it's also something that I can observe. And so I step into the role of the observer, the person noticing. Ah, pain in the foot. Ah, heart pumping. Ah, fear. How interesting. I wonder what would happen if I were to just allow these things to run their course and not feed them.
Mm.
So I discovered something profound. And what I discovered was that a cramp left to its own devices will disappear of its own accord within about 3 minutes max. And typically it'll get worse before it gets better. But even though it gets worse, it's not pain you can't stand. It's really the fear of the pain that's more suffering than the pain itself.
Oh, that's a beautiful metaphor. And I think we could do a whole program on curiosity. Because if
Yeah.
people just stayed curious in life, their
Yeah.
life could transform. And you said something else really, I think, so powerful of, and I've heard this line, feeling is healing, of being present to what you're feeling
Right.
will help you move into that healing. Yeah,
That's right.
that's
And
beautiful.
and this is where all that work and focus becomes helpful, because it's too easy to feel that panic and want to run from the experience. But the practice allows you to become that observer, to become the one who's feeling it from a more loving and accepting perspective.
Yeah,
So
you're,
now that takes us, and I know we're running low on time here, but which we always do. I mean, there's never,
it all always goes so fast.
yeah,
So
it
maybe
does.
you'll stick around after the 30 minutes for questions. Would you do that?
I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay,
So
great.
let me give you this one little
At number
piece.
5.
And by the way, I'm going to jump real quick. The fifth part of the formula is what I call assemble your lifeboats. And that means, when it's all just too hard for you, when you can't possibly muster the resilience and the peace, pick up the phone, call somebody you love, somebody who's supportive, right? It's always knowing who is the kind of person who can help you to go back to center. That's not everybody. There are people who, if I called them, they would make my life worse. They would be trying to be good, but they
You
wouldn't be
know
doing
them.
it well, right? When my dog Woody died, and I had a memorial for him, and people were jumping on and saying wonderful things about him, but some people just said the wrong things. They just don't have the consciousness to understand what to say. That's okay. You know, I didn't fault them for it, but those aren't the people I'm calling when I'm in trouble, when I'm in emotional distress. So, you know, have your lifeboats. But going back again to leaning in is just like what we said about the cramp, right? It's about, I feel this feeling. Let me sit in the driver's seat of the noticing presence. Let me allow it to do what it does. Let me get out of my head and into my body. Get out of your head and into your body. And regardless of what caused or triggered this turmoil, it is now simply a physical phenomenon. That's how our bodies work. It's neurophysiological. So it's going to go from a thought or an experience to a physical experience. And now if you put all of your focus and attention on observing the physical experience, it will dissolve.
Beautiful.
And you'll be better able to deal with whatever the trauma or turmoil was, because you're not trying to solve a problem while you're off balance.
This is such a gift for all of us, especially now, but for the rest of our lives, to become bulletproof.
Yeah.
So I know that's the name of your book,
Yes.
and I know our 30 minutes is just about done here. How can people learn more about what you're up to and all the resources and amazing materials that you have? And you've got a course coming up too, don't you?
I do. I'm going to be, we haven't selected a date yet, but I've got a program called Bulletproof Mental Resilience. So it's a Bulletproof Resilience Workshop. And I will start taking early enrollees. So if anybody's interested in joining us for that, it'll be a two to 2.5 hour workshop. We'll be going over a lot of these things, but it'll be integrative and interactive, so people can practice some new skills and come away being able to deal with difficult situations more elegantly.
Great. And
So I'm
then go to
excited
your
about it.
website.
Yeah, you
Steve
could go to stevetaubman.com, and there is there's a button up top that says Resilience Workshop. And if you read about it, it looks interesting. There's also a button on that page to set up a time to just talk to me about it and see if it's something you'd like to join us for.
Well, what a gift you are to the world, my
Thank
friend.
you. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention, Robin, is that if
Great.
you go to bestofsteve.com,
Ah,
bestofsteve.com will take you to a page to put you on my mailing list, and I'll also send you a digital download of the first chapter of Bulletproof.
well, how wonderful. How generous of you.
Thank you.
What a joy. Always. I just
Yeah,
get
same.
inspired every time I connect with you. And even when I think about you, I get you're
Me too.
one of those people to call, you know? Yeah.
Well, I want to also shout out to a few of the folks who have been watching and commenting along the way here. Kyra or Kira and Shell and oh, that's Robin, that's you, and Jen and Doug. Thank you guys all for participating at that level, and you're all welcome to reach out if you'd like. More than happy to talk to any one of you. And if anybody has a question, I'm here.
You're so accessible, and it's such a gift, and you have such great wisdom. So I'm thrilled that you got to be part of 30 Minutes of Wisdom. And then we now have this on our YouTube channel. So we're going to complete our recording. And then Dr. Steve said he'd stick around for a few minutes for Q&A. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I love what Kyra said. She said, speaking to my soul. Thank you. And Bulletproof, such a great name for the book. Beautiful. Wow. From Shelly-Anna. So people, fantastic way to start the day. I love it. I love it. This is timely, and grateful for this today from Tina. So thank you everyone for your comments and your participation, and most importantly for your willingness to do the work, because it's work.
It is. Yeah,
it's
good work. It's the right work.
All right. We're going to complete our recording. Thanks guys.